everyone, what's up? It's Ronnie, the cookie for you and me. Today we're making a Leek Confit and goat cheese crostata. It's simple, it's rustic, it's impressive, and it's so delicious. It's perfect for when you're having guests over or you want a fun appetizer right before dinner, so stay tuned.
You and me, we like the same kind of music. That's why we make a good you and me.
We're gonna make the dough for this recipe first because when we make our Leek Confit, it's gonna give the dough a chance to chill in the refrigerator. So I wanna start out with 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And then we want a teaspoon of salt. And then we want 2 1/2 tablespoons of sugar. Then I wanna give these dry ingredients a quick mix, and then I'm gonna get my frozen butter from the refrigerator. I like to use frozen butter because it keeps the butter from melting when I'm actually handling the dough. That way when I bake it, the dough still comes out nice and flaky. Just gonna give the butter a rough chop. Then I'm gonna add my butter into the dry ingredients. Then you wanna mix that up until it resembles coarse meal. So once you have your butter and your dry ingredients mixed together, I wanna add 1 tablespoon of ice cold water at a time until the dough begins to form. So once the dough is formed, all you want to do is wrap it in plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator for about half an hour. So the first thing you want to do when making our Leek Confit is thoroughly wash our leeks. These guys can get really, really dirty. Then we're going to chop up the white parts and the light green parts, and ultimately we want about 1 1/2 cups of chopped leeks. After we have our leeks chopped up, we want to dice up half of a small onion. After I have my onions chopped, I want about half a tablespoon of fresh thyme. So since we're chopping everything up anyway, let's chop up our fresh rosemary. The rosemary is not actually going to be used in our Leek Confit, but instead it's going to be sprinkled on top of the crostata crust right before we bake it. Alright, looks like we're ready to make our Leek Confit. Let's head on back to the stove. In a small saucepan, I want to heat up 3 tablespoons of butter and 3 tablespoons of olive oil over medium to high heat. When the butter and the olive oil begins to give off just a hint of steam, you want to add the onions and cook these guys for about 3 to 4 minutes until they're soft. When the onions have softened, you want to stir in your leeks. Then you want to add a couple pinches of salt, ground black pepper, and half a teaspoon of onion powder. Then you want to give it a nice stir and cover it and cook it for another 5 to 10 more minutes until the leeks are soft. So let's take a look at our Leek Confit. The Leek Confit looks delicious and it looks like it's ready for the time. We're going to take it off the heat, add our fresh thyme, and put it on our crostata dough, put it in the oven, and we're going to have a delicious Leek Confit and goat cheese crostata. So I have our Leek Confit here. I'm going to add the fresh thyme and then we're going to take the dough out and we're going to assemble our crostata. So we have our dough here. It's been in the fridge for about half an hour. Remember, you can always make this in advance. It's a great dough to make the night before if you're having guests over, or if you just want to have a crostata dough ready to make the next day. I just want to flour my cutting board. Then I also want to flour my rolling pin. I'm going to roll it out until it's about 1/4 inch thick. So I have the dough rolled out to about 1/4 inch thick. I'm going to transfer it to my parchment paper lined cookie sheet, and then we're going to assemble our crostata. So the first thing you want to do is spread out your Leek Confit in the middle of the dough. You want to leave about 2 to 3 inches so that we can fold it over later to form a crust. Next, you want to take our goat cheese and just put little dollops of it all over the Leek Confit. So once we have our goat cheese on top of the Leek Confit, now I want to fold the edges over to form a crust. Brush the edges with some egg wash and then sprinkle some of that fresh rosemary on it. Now I'm going to see this bad boy in the oven for about 30 minutes at 375 degrees until it's nice and golden brown. I'll see you guys when it's done. Our Leek Confit and goat cheese crostata is ready. Let's cut it up and give it a taste. The leeks just melt in your mouth, and the goat cheese is extra creamy, all carried on the vehicle of the crostata dough, which is flaky and buttery. It is so perfect. You guys have got to try this recipe. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me, and I'll see you next time on Cooking for You and Me with Ronnie Woo.